Welcome to the second visionary pictogram in the series. This pictogram explains how personality consciousness threads are released so that we might express more of our soul. This is the process that underpins all healing, regardless of what form it takes. The experience of drawing this pictogram was one of deep reverence and wonder. As I drew, I was aware of a smell of roses, richer yet more subtle than any to be found on the physical plane. I asked for further insight for what was unfolding for me. I was intuitively guided to understand that the time for light withdrawal had begun. Light withdrawal simply means the willingness to withdraw the light of a personality, to allow a greater light to shine through. In the first instance, this light will be the light and intelligence of the soul. This happens when we are willing to align our will with that of a higher will that resides within all of us. We are very slowly stepping over the threshold of conventional wisdom into a more conscious state of being, and we become conscious of the teachers of light that guide us on the inner planes. To fully understand this pictogram, let's start by examining all of the elements. The contemplated figure in the middle represents the soul guardian and the mediating principle within all of us that brings the personality into alignment with the soul. The Mobius or infinity symbol and the golden capstone together suggest a balanced state of being that is beyond space and time, where the male and female aspects of a psyche have come into equilibrium to fulfill their rightful function as part of a whole. The white point of light in the middle of the picture represents the soul, a vibration of such balanced strength and purity of intent that it appears as no more than a fixed point. I was deeply touched by the loving strength of the force field of the soul, and yet I want to describe it as passive. With this word, I am trying to convey an experience of such deep knowing that there is no need to actively engage or impose on outer events or the lower personality vehicles. The soul light simply awaits a time to be recognized, or drawing on a biblical analogy, awaiting the return of the prodigal son. The bottom cone in the pictogram represents physical life and the many subtle levels of physical creation that are part of this. The threads that are wrapped around the cone represent thoughts, beliefs, and actions that are limiting and out of alignment with our soul resonance. Through our own unconsciousness, we act on these limiting thoughts and remain intertwined with and anchored in physical reality. Every single one of these threads has to be made conscious and be balanced before we become a full expression of the soul. The pictogram is divided into 4 quadrants. The 4 quadrants and the square symbolically represent the personality and the archetypal polarities of physical and spiritual essence and masculine and feminine aspects. The masculine and feminine are our defining and receptive capacities, and these are explored in more detail in the next 2 pictograms in the series. I was shown that these 4 quadrants need to connect and become balanced through both a horizontal and vertical movement that happens simultaneously. On the horizontal axis, the feminine and the masculine connect. In other words, our experience of an event or an aspect of life and the meaning we bring to these experiences become connected. As the left and the right join, a diamond shape appears at the center. At the same time, the vertical axis of matter and spirit come into relationship. Simply expressed, the connected life experience from the horizontal axis is now understood in context of a bigger consciousness challenge of a connecting of the physical and the spiritual. As shown in the image, the effect of this is the purified space of a diamond in the center of the image. When we overlay the 2 images, we are left with connected quadrants. At this stage, one might describe this personality pathway as being under the influence of the soul, or as being connected to the 5th vibratory plane. Please note that the 5th is not the product of the 4 quadrants coming into balance. The 5th aspect has always been there, awaiting to be recognized. We are so attuned to the emotional and mental turmoil of the conflicting 4 quadrants that we miss the finer harmonics of the 5th plane altogether. We have not created anything new, we have just grown to be able to work with 5 rather than just 4 elemental substances. My attention was then drawn to the importance of a physical quadrant. Without this earthly quadrant, the higher creative planes would not be able to anchor and the process would be incomplete. The importance of this cannot be overemphasized. The deeper impulse is not one of escaping, but rather of engaging life. We are the anchors that remain grounded and take on the task of transforming our own suffering and thus the suffering of humanity. In doing so, we create a new reality and new systems, or one might also say that we bring heaven to earth. This process of transformation is not a singular event, as there are many pathways and they all need to become conscious. I was told that every thread needs to be reconciled. It is a gradual process of dying many small consciousness deaths before we are able to fully express our soul potential. This is the four-step process through which all personality pathways are released one at a time. Balanced pathways are not static. They are totally open-ended and attune themselves to the higher vibratory rate of the soul. Eventually, the many squares appear as no more than a circle. The square within the circle is one of the oldest symbols of cosmic order. Our consciousness is now fully focused on expressing the intelligence of our soul, and we appear as no more than a fixed point of light. The soul personality polarity has been switched. The soul is now the active principle. Personality attachments or limiting beliefs will cause this highly tuned soul vibration to oscillate wildly, limiting our ability to focus our innate creativity to bring about the changes we desire to manifest in the world. Through this process of transformation there comes a time when our inner light comes into resonance with our outer light. When this continuity of consciousness is restored, we are sanctified and we become a continuous pillar of light. I was shown that this is in effect will immediately manifest two further pillars of protection, and thus we birth the most fundamental of all processes, a trinity. The beautiful white rose symbolically represents this sacred potential. When this happens, although still in the world, one is no longer of this world. It is my understanding that when we reach this point, our consciousness is no longer limited to the body and can easily be projected into other environments of light in service to the ongoing education and of creation. Thank you for sharing this visionary pictogram with me. For more information or to watch the next video in the series, visit my website www.visualtouch.co.nz. Thank you.